Ethan walked carefully over the rocky ground, his boots crunching on loose stones. The wind was cold, whipping around the cliffs, but he did not care. He had come to this distant planet alone, looking for rare creatures that no human had seen before. Most explorers avoided this place, calling it dangerous, but Ethan liked danger. It made him feel alive. As he moved closer to a cluster of jagged rocks, he heard a soft, weak sound. At first he thought it was the wind, but then it came again, a faint, pitiful cry. He froze, listening. It was small, almost like a child calling for help. His heart skipped a beat. Ethan crouched down and scanned the ground. Behind a pile of stones he saw it. A tiny hatchling lay on the cold rock, shivering. Its skin was a pale green, dotted with small scales, and its wings were too small to lift it. The little creature looked sick, its eyes half closed, and its chest moved slowly as it struggled to breathe. "Oh no," Ethan whispered, his hand reaching out instinctively. "You're not supposed to be out here alone." The hatchling looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. It opened its mouth slightly, letting out a tiny squeak. Ethan could feel its fear. It was so small, so fragile, and so alone. Without thinking, he lifted it gently into his arms. The creature trembled, curling against his chest. Ethan hugged it close, careful not to hurt it. He looked around quickly. There was no one else nearby, no other humans, no alien predators in sight. The cliffs were empty and silent. Ethan's mind raced. How had this little one ended up here? Was it abandoned? Or was it sick and left behind by its family? Ethan sat down on a flat rock and studied the hatchling. Its tiny body felt warm against his chest, but he knew the warmth would not last long. He gently brushed some dust from its scales. "You need care," he said softly. "Don't worry. I'll help you." He remembered some of the first aid lessons he had learned before coming to this planet. He carefully checked the hatchling for injuries. Its wings were bent slightly and its legs looked weak. It had faint scratches on its belly, probably from falling over sharp stones. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had never seen such a tiny creature in so much pain. As he tried to think of what to do, the wind howled louder. Ethan wrapped the hatchling in a small cloth he carried, shielding it from the chill. He whispered to it, telling it to stay calm. Surprisingly, the hatchling pressed its head against his chest as if it understood him. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his heart. Suddenly, a shadow passed over them. Ethan looked up quickly, but the sky was empty. He shook his head, thinking it was just the movement of clouds. The hatchling, however, stiffened in his arms, its eyes wide with fear. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. Something was watching them. He could not see it, but instinct told him it was not far away. Ethan's mind raced again. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but nothing like this. He could not leave the hatchling alone, not even for a moment. He tightened his hold, shielding it with his body. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "We need to find shelter. Fast." He glanced around and saw a small cave a short distance away. It was dark inside, but it would block the wind. Carefully, Ethan stood and began walking toward it, moving slowly so he would not hurt the hatchling. Each step was cautious, careful not to slip on the loose stones. As he walked, he talked to the hatchling softly. "We'll be safe soon," he said. "Just a little further. You'll be okay." The hatchling chirped faintly as if replying. Ethan smiled despite the fear and tension. Somehow this tiny creature gave him courage too. When he reached the cave, he set the hatchling down gently on a bed of soft moss and rocks. The hatchling looked around nervously, but Ethan stayed close, watching its every move. He pulled out a small water container from his pack and offered a few drops. The hatchling licked them slowly. Ethan felt relief wash over him. For the first time since he found it, the hatchling seemed to relax. Its breathing became steadier and it curled up slightly. Ethan kept talking to it, telling it stories of Earth, of other humans, and of the strange worlds he had visited. It was silly, but the hatchling seemed to listen. Ethan did not notice that from the edge of the cliff, a massive pair of golden eyes watched him. Hidden behind a rock, a huge shadow waited, still and silent. The observer's scales glittered in the sunlight, and its wings were folded like a cloak. Ethan had no idea that the most powerful creature on this planet was only a few feet away, studying him. All he knew was that the hatchling was alive, and in his arms, it felt safe. For now, that was enough. Ethan stayed in the cave, keeping the hatchling close to his chest. The little creature's tiny body was still weak, but it had stopped trembling as much. The sun was low now, painting the sky in orange and pink. The wind had slowed, but the cliffs still rattled with distant echoes. He tried to make the hatchling comfortable. He used some moss and soft leaves he found in the cave to create a small bed. "There, this should keep you warm," he said softly. The hatchling looked at him with big, trusting eyes, and Ethan felt a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. Ethan looked around carefully. He knew this planet was full of dangers. Large predators could be anywhere. Even small creatures might be poisonous. But he could not leave the hatchling alone. His mind raced as he tried to think of what to do next. He did not have medicine, he did not have equipment, but he had his hands, his mind, and his courage. That had to be enough. Meanwhile, high above, hidden behind jagged rocks, a massive figure watched. The Dragon Queen Zyra was enormous. Her golden scales shone in the sunlight, and her wings stretched wider than any human could imagine. She had been following the hatchling from a distance, and now she saw the human holding it carefully. Zyra's eyes narrowed. She was the strongest creature on the planet, feared by all. Usually humans would run, scream, or try to fight. But this human was different. He held her child gently, spoke to it softly, and seemed to understand it in a way aliens never did. Her claws dug into the stone as she studied him. Most humans were reckless, greedy, or afraid. This one showed neither fear nor selfishness. He showed care. He showed bravery. Zyra did not know what to make of it, but she felt something unfamiliar, curiosity. Back in the cave, Ethan tried to feed the hatchling. He had some water and small scraps of food he had carried for his own journey. He offered them slowly, afraid to overwhelm the tiny creature. The hatchling sniffed, then nibbled at the scraps. Ethan smiled. "Good little one. You're stronger than you look." The hatchling chirped faintly, making tiny movements with its wings. Ethan laughed quietly. "You'll fly one day," he said, "but for now just stay with me." He felt a bond forming, stronger than anything he had expected. Suddenly, a loud gust of wind swept into the cave. The hatchling squeaked and pressed against him. Ethan wrapped his arms tighter around it. "Shh, it's okay. I'm here," he whispered. Outside, Zyra's massive head shifted slightly. She let out a low rumble that vibrated the stones, but she did not move closer. She was testing the human. Would he run? Would he drop her child in fear? Or would he stay calm and protect it? Ethan heard the faint sound of the rumble and looked toward the cave entrance. He saw nothing but the orange sky. He shook his head. "Just the wind," he muttered. But inside, his instincts told him someone, or something, was watching. For the rest of the afternoon, Ethan cared for the hatchling. He cleaned its small wounds, offered water, and whispered to it stories of his home world. The hatchling slowly began to relax in his arms. Its tiny body leaned against him, trusting him completely. Ethan felt proud, but he also felt a growing weight of responsibility. This was not just any creature. This was a life he had chosen to protect. Zyra continued to watch silently, her golden eyes never leaving the human. She had seen humans before, but never like this. Most humans only cared about themselves, but this one risked everything for a fragile life. She felt a flicker of something she had not felt in years: respect. As evening approached, the wind died down and the sky turned a deep purple. Ethan lit a small fire outside the cave, careful to keep it low so it would not attract unwanted attention. The hatchling curled against him, and he felt its small heartbeat against his chest. Ethan whispered, "Don't worry, little one. We'll be safe tonight." He kept watch, eyes scanning the cliffs, his mind alert. He knew this was only the beginning. There were dangers out there, and the hatchling was too weak to defend itself. But he also knew something else. He had something that most creatures underestimated: humans could think, adapt, and fight in ways others could not. High above, Zyra shifted her massive wings and let out a soft hiss. She would not approach yet. She wanted to see how far the human would go, how much courage he had, and whether he truly cared for her child. She had never met a human like this before, and something told her he was extraordinary. As night fell, Ethan held the hatchling close, watching the stars appear one by one. The little creature stirred, blinking up at him. He smiled. "We made it through the day," he said softly. "Tomorrow will be better." And above them, unseen, Zyra's golden eyes glimmered in the moonlight. She waited, silent and still, studying the human who had dared to care for her child. For the first time in her long life, she wondered if humans were more than fragile creatures. Perhaps, she thought, they were something remarkable. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft glow of sunlight spilling into the cave. The hatchling stirred in his arms, blinking sleepily. Its breathing was steadier than yesterday, but it was still too weak to move on its own. Ethan smiled and whispered, "Good morning, little one. Ready for another day?" He carefully wrapped the hatchling in a blanket and stepped outside. The cliffs were bright in the morning light, and the wind was calmer than before. Ethan scanned the horizon. He had to find food, water, and a safer place to rest. The hatchling could not survive long on the open cliffs, and predators might be nearby. As Ethan walked, he kept talking softly to the hatchling, telling it about Earth, about forests and oceans, about humans who loved and protected their young. The hatchling chirped faintly in response, its tiny wings fluttering. Ethan laughed quietly. "You're learning fast, little one." But his peace did not last. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed across the cliffs. Ethan froze. From behind a rock, 3 alien scavengers appeared. They were tall, thin creatures with sharp claws and long snouts. Their eyes glowed bright red, and they hissed as they saw the hatchling in his arms. "Step back, little one," Ethan murmured. He tightened his hold on the hatchling. The aliens advanced cautiously, circling him like wolves. Their claws scraped the rocks and their teeth glinted in the sun. Ethan's heart raced, but he did not panic. He had faced dangerous creatures before. He scanned the cliffside and saw loose stones, jagged rocks, and narrow ledges. He could use the environment to his advantage. The aliens lunged. Ethan jumped to the side, rolling to avoid their sharp claws. One of them tried to grab the hatchling, but Ethan swung a heavy rock, hitting it on the side. The alien shrieked and backed away. Ethan moved quickly, keeping the hatchling safe against his chest. He ran toward a narrow ledge, knowing the aliens were too large to follow him there. The hatchling clung to him, squeaking nervously. Ethan whispered, "Stay calm. I've got you." The aliens tried to follow, but the ledge was too thin. Ethan used a small branch to knock one off balance, and it tumbled down the cliff with a startled cry. The other 2 hesitated, unsure of the path. Ethan pushed the hatchling ahead and guided them to a safer part of the cliffs where the ground was uneven and the stones could be used as traps. He paused to catch his breath. "We're not out of danger yet," he said softly. The hatchling chirped, and Ethan felt a strange sense of pride. Even in fear, the little creature trusted him completely. Ethan thought quickly. He picked up a handful of stones and threw them in a wide arc. They clattered down the cliff, creating noise and confusion. The scavengers hissed and recoiled, giving Ethan a chance to move further to safety. His mind raced. Every step had to be calculated. Every action had to protect the hatchling. After several minutes of careful maneuvering, Ethan found a small cave hidden behind rocks. It was just large enough for him and the hatchling, and it offered better protection. He moved inside, gently placing the hatchling down. It chirped, as if relieved to be in a safer spot. Ethan caught his breath and looked around. "We made it, for now," he said softly. He checked the hatchling's tiny body. It had a few scratches from the scramble, but nothing serious. He wiped the dirt away and whispered, "You're tougher than you look, little one." Outside, unseen, Zyra watched. She had followed the chaos from a distance. Her golden eyes glimmered with interest. Most humans would have run or panicked, but this one had stayed calm, using his mind, his strength, and his courage to protect her child. Zyra's massive wings shifted slightly, creating a shadow over the cliffside. She wanted to step in to test him more closely, but something made her pause. She did not understand it fully, but she respected him. Few creatures earned her respect without a fight, and this human had done it with care, not aggression. Ethan set up a small pile of moss and rocks to keep the hatchling comfortable. He pulled some leaves and water from his pack and offered them again. The hatchling drank eagerly, then curled up against him. Ethan stroked its tiny head. "We'll get through this," he whispered. "I won't let anything hurt you." Hours passed and the scavengers did not return. Ethan stayed alert, listening to every sound, watching every movement on the cliffs. The hatchling slept lightly in his arms, occasionally twitching its wings. Ethan smiled, feeling a strange connection to this fragile creature. It was small, weak, and alone, yet it had courage. And so did he. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and purple, Ethan realized something. This was not just about survival. The hatchling had trusted him, and in return, he had discovered something in himself, a bravery he did not know he had. High above, Zyra's eyes followed every move. She had seen humans before, but none like this. He had faced danger, protected her child, and stayed calm under pressure. He had used his mind, not just his strength. She tilted her head, silent but thoughtful. Perhaps humans were more than fragile creatures after all. Perhaps they were something remarkable. Ethan whispered to the hatchling, "We're safe tonight. Tomorrow we'll find even better shelter." The little creature chirped softly in response. For the first time since he found it, Ethan felt hope. They had survived the day, and somehow he knew that together they could face anything. And far above, the Dragon Queen waited, hidden but watching. She would not interfere yet. She wanted to see what this human was capable of, and if he could truly protect her child. The next morning the cliffs glowed with soft sunlight. Ethan carefully held the hatchling in his arms, feeling its tiny heartbeat against his chest. The little creature's breathing was steadier now, and it even opened its eyes to look at him. Ethan smiled. "You're stronger than yesterday," he whispered. "We're getting there, little one." He had decided it was time to find a safer place, closer to the nest where the hatchling belonged. He wanted to return it to its family, but he did not know how they would react. He had never faced dragons before. Most humans thought they were myths, but here he was, holding one in his arms, in a world full of creatures far larger and stronger than himself. As Ethan stepped carefully across the rocky ground, he felt a strange stillness. The wind had dropped, and even the usual sounds of distant creatures were quiet. The hatchling squirmed slightly and Ethan held it tighter. "Shoo, it's okay," he said softly. "We'll be safe soon." Suddenly movement caught his eye. At first he thought it was another scavenger, but then he froze. A massive shape emerged from behind a cluster of rocks. Golden scales shimmered in the sunlight, and massive wings stretched behind it, casting a shadow that covered the cliffs. Ethan's heart stopped. The Dragon Queen stepped into full view. Her eyes were huge and golden, glowing with intelligence and power. Her head was high, her posture proud, yet her gaze was fixed on him and the hatchling. Ethan could not move. He had heard stories about dragons, stories of fire, power, and destruction, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The hatchling chirped nervously and Ethan hugged it closer. "It's okay," he whispered. His mind raced. Should he run? Should he fight? But he could not let the hatchling go. Not now. The queen's massive claws dug into the rock. She let out a low, rumbling growl that shook the stones. Ethan could feel it in his chest. He froze, waiting for the attack. But it did not come. She stepped closer, each movement slow and deliberate. Ethan's mind worked quickly. He did not have weapons and he could not outrun her. All he had was courage and hope. He took a deep breath and spoke softly, his voice calm. "I only want to help your child. I won't hurt it. I promise." The queen paused. Her golden eyes studied him, scanning every expression, every movement. Most humans would cower, scream, or flee. But Ethan stood still, holding the hatchling gently, showing no fear. He showed care. And she understood. The hatchling chirped again, looking up at the queen. Its tiny wings twitched, and it turned slightly as if introducing him. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never felt anything like this before, a mix of fear, awe, and hope all at once. The queen lowered her massive head slowly, bringing it closer to the hatchling. Ethan held his breath. The dragon's eyes softened slightly and she sniffed the little creature. It did not cry. It did not struggle. It just stayed calm, resting against him. Ethan realized something amazing. She trusted him. Ethan whispered to the hatchling, "See? She's not going to hurt you." The hatchling chirped and Ethan felt a small surge of pride. He had done it. He had protected it, kept it safe, and earned the trust of the most powerful creature on this planet. The queen's wings shifted slightly, casting a shadow over Ethan and the hatchling. She rumbled softly, a sound that seemed almost like approval. Ethan could feel the power in her body, the intelligence behind her gaze, and yet she did not attack. She was watching him, studying him, trying to understand how such a small, fragile human could stand without fear and act with care. Ethan stepped back carefully, keeping the hatchling safe in his arms. "I'll take you home," he said softly, speaking to the hatchling and the queen at the same time. "I'll make sure you're safe." The queen shifted again, wings folding back slightly. She let out another low rumble, this time softer, almost like a sigh. Ethan realized that she was giving him permission, though he could not be sure. All he knew was that she had decided he was not a threat. For the first time, Ethan felt a true connection to the creatures of this world. He realized that humans had something unique: courage, empathy, and the ability to act with intelligence even in the face of danger. Most creatures would attack first and think later, but humans could think, care, and act. The hatchling chirped softly, nudging Ethan's chest. He smiled. "We made it," he whispered. "We did it together." The queen stayed for a moment longer, her massive eyes watching him. Then, without a sound, she spread her wings and turned back toward the cliffs above. Ethan knew she would return, but for now, she was leaving them in peace. Ethan sank to the ground, still holding the hatchling. His hands shook slightly, but it was not fear, it was awe. He had faced the unknown, protected a life smaller and weaker than his own, and earned the respect of the most powerful creature on this planet. As the sun rose higher, Ethan looked at the hatchling. "Tomorrow we'll find the nest," he he said softly. "And we'll be ready for whatever comes next." The hatchling chirped in agreement, nuzzling against him. Ethan smiled, knowing that he had changed something, maybe even more than the hatchling. Somewhere in the shadow of the cliffs, the Dragon Queen had seen it too. Humans could be fearless, clever, and caring all at once. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were more than small creatures in a vast universe. The sun was high in the sky, casting bright light over the cliffs. Ethan held the hatchling close in his arms as he carefully made his way toward a large nesting area he had spotted yesterday. The little creature chirped softly, nudging against him as if urging him forward. Ethan smiled and whispered, "Almost there, little one. We're almost home." The nest area was quiet now, but Ethan could sense movement. The hatchling's tiny wings twitched nervously. He had seen many alien creatures before, but none like this place. Huge nests made of rocks and vines were scattered across the cliffs, and each one seemed alive with subtle movement. Shadows shifted, and Ethan knew that powerful eyes were watching him. He took a deep breath, keeping the hatchling close. "Stay calm," he said softly. "I'll make sure nothing happens to you." From a distance, the Dragon Queen appeared again. Zyra's massive wings cast a shadow over the cliffs, and her golden eyes were fixed on him. She had followed Ethan, but now she wanted to see the final test. Could he return her child safely? Could he survive in her world without fear? Ethan stepped carefully toward the largest nest. The hatchling chirped softly, looking up at him with wide eyes. He crouched down and gently placed it on the soft moss at the center of the nest. The little creature blinked, then curled up, looking around nervously. Ethan stayed close, keeping his hands ready to protect it if needed. Then, the most incredible moment happened. The other hatchlings in the nest began to stir. Tiny claws scraped on the rocks, and small wings flapped hesitantly. Ethan realized these were the siblings of the hatchling he had saved. They were weak, small but alive. A low, rumbling sound filled the air. Ethan froze. Zyra had stepped forward, her massive head lowering near the nest. The hatchlings chirped excitedly, recognizing her. Ethan realized he was in the presence of a queen, and she was looking at him. For a moment, he feared she might see him as a threat. But instead, she lowered her massive head toward him slowly, her golden eyes studying him carefully. Ethan held his breath, keeping his body calm. He did not want to make sudden movements. He had no weapons, no protection, just his courage and his care for the hatchling. Zyra let out a soft rumble, almost like a sigh, and then spread her wings slightly. She did not attack. She did not roar. She simply watched, and Ethan understood. She trusted him. Ethan whispered to the hatchling, "See? She's not going to hurt you." The hatchling chirped softly and looked up at him, nuzzling his chest. He smiled. He had done it. He had protected a life smaller and weaker than himself and earned the respect of the most powerful creature on this planet. The queen shifted again, this time nudging the hatchling gently with her massive snout. The little creature chirped, pressing against its mother. Ethan felt a surge of relief and joy. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the satisfaction of knowing he had done the right thing. Zyra's gaze lingered on him. Ethan realized she was trying to understand humans. Most creatures feared humans, laughed at them, or ignored them. But he had faced danger, protected her child, and acted with intelligence and care. He had used courage, empathy, and quick thinking, qualities that even the queen seemed to respect. Ethan stood quietly, watching as the hatchlings gathered around their mother. He realized something important. Humans had something rare. They could think, care, and act even when the world was dangerous. They could face fear without being reckless. They could protect the weak even when it meant risking themselves. The queen rumbled once more, then stepped back, her massive wings folding elegantly behind her. She watched Ethan for a long moment, then turned her attention to her nest. It was clear she had accepted him. Ethan could leave safely now. He took a step back, keeping his eyes on the queen. The hatchling chirped softly as if saying goodbye. Ethan smiled and whispered, "Take care, little one. Fly high someday." He felt a strange mixture of sadness and pride. He was leaving, but he had made a difference. As Ethan walked away from the nest, the queen's golden eyes followed him. She did not move, but there was a calmness in her gaze, a silent acknowledgement. He had earned her respect. Humans were small, fragile, and weak compared to dragons, but he had shown something greater: bravery, intelligence, and a heart that cared. Ethan paused on the cliff edge and looked back. The hatchlings were chirping softly around their mother, safe and alive. He felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He had faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and he had come out stronger. Somewhere deep in the cliffs, Zyra rumbled again. It was not a sound of anger or threat, it was a sound of recognition. Humans were not like other creatures. They were clever, brave, and capable of great compassion. Perhaps, one day they could even change the course of the galaxy. Ethan smiled to himself and turned to continue his journey. The hatchling in his arms was safe in the nest, the queen had accepted him, and he had proven something remarkable, not just to them but to himself. Humans were small but they were extraordinary. The wind blew gently over the cliffs, carrying with it the sounds of the hatchlings chirping and the queen watching. Ethan walked down the rocky path, feeling proud, hopeful, and ready for whatever the universe might throw at him next. For the first time in a long while he felt truly alive.